Hi, hello, and welcome back to the Nicole Miller Live podcast. Happy Halloween! I'm so excited. I love Halloween. I love dressing up, and then I was getting ready to shoot this podcast, and I was like, I didn't dress up for the podcast. I should have had a costume or something. Let me see if I can move my hair off this microphone. You know what? Let's just move it up here. This will probably sound a little better anyway. In honor of spooky season, I asked you for your creepy, spooky stories, and nobody sent me anything. Last time I asked for crazy things that happened on a plane. I got all of these stories, and this time, nobody said anything. Actually, I keep doing this where I post, hey, this is my next podcast, and then like a month later, I end up recording it. That's not the plan, you guys. This is just life gets in the way when you have 3 kids, a million gig jobs. I just finished teaching some kids stand-up. So I had a kids stand-up class. So this last weekend, I got to see them perform their very first stand-up comedy routine, and that was very awesome. Okay, here's where I posted it on my Facebook page. And one person was like, I can't tell mine. Okay. And I also put my email so people can just email it and not post it on a public forum. I know that takes work. Man, even I don't think I could. Somebody asked me to follow them. I'm like, give me a scary story. And someone's like, follow me. I do have a lot of new followers from non-English speaking countries, or at least that's not their first language. So I do appreciate that, and I can tell when they post and they're not quite sure what I said, but I'm glad you're here. And yeah, I didn't get anything on my Facebook page for this. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a link in the show notes, and you can follow that. You can get on my email list. You can get on my Facebook page. And what I'll do is, before I do a podcast, I post about it at least a week in advance. I try to do a week, and then lately it's been a month. That was not on purpose. So what I had to do, because nobody helped me out, and don't worry, I'm not mad about it. I don't care. That's fine. I had to go to Reddit. And I'm not sure what the rules are as far as telling someone's Reddit story. I'm like, it's on Reddit. That's a public forum, so I'm just going to read it from Reddit, and these people can't be mad. I also, 2 things. I didn't read these. They're here. So this will be my first time reading these out loud. So it'll be like a blind react. And, oh man, I was going to say something else, wasn't I? Well, when I think of it, I'll let you know. Not the first time. I forgot what I was saying in the middle of a sentence. That's exciting. Aging. That's great. It's just the best. So, Reddit creepy stories on today's Nicole Miller Live podcast. Actually, this one, it looks like I can't tell you who posted it. Creepy. Oh, I was going to say, all of these Reddit posts are from years and years and years ago, so probably no one will be upset. But if there is some kind of process I need to go through, please let me know. I don't want to be messing this up here. Okay. The person who posted this 6 years ago, they're answering a question, what's your best true spooky story? And they wanted serious actual stories. I probably should have read them. Oops. Like screened them. Oh well, it's going to be great. The scariest thing I've had happened while camping. So I live in Eastern Oregon, and my mom lives in Western Oregon. I went to visit her for the summer, and she's very outdoorsy, so we decided to take the 1-hour drive from her city to the coast. We end up at this free campsite at the top of this hill. Huge foothills of the coastal mountains, about a 25-minute drive from the top where the campsite is to the bottom where the main road was. We were the only campers there. Spooky. We relaxed for the rest of the day, made food, etc. A truck full of men drive up the hill and talk with my mom, parentheses, IDK what about, wasn't suspicious at the time, and they leave us. Fast forward to the middle of the night. I wake up to my mom sitting straight up in the tent. I wake easily, so I heard her gasp and it woke me. As soon as she saw I was awake, she put her hand over my mouth because I was starting to ask her what's wrong. It was dead silent, and all of a sudden you hear footsteps right beside the tent. The little flap that covers the zipper was even moving. Thankfully, my mom was quick. My mom has quick wits and said very loudly, Kenny, grab the gun. Kenny's my dad. Although that doesn't matter. And mind you, he was not there, just as girls like I previously said. They left. No harm was done. Thank the Lord for my mama. Wow. I don't even know what this stands for, but I see it a lot. TLDR. I want it to be like today I learned, but that's TIL. Today I learned. TLDR. I don't know. I think it's, but they're doing like a quick little snippet. TLDR. Two girls at a campsite. Too long don't read, right? Yeah, too long don't read. Two girls at a campsite alone, people outside a tent in the middle of the night, and my mom pulled some badassery. There we go. Let's see. Is there a TLDR? Maybe I should read those first. I almost didn't read it, that TLDR. Took me too long to figure that one out. This was posted 6 years ago by Just Another Gamer. I have had several dreams similar to what I am posting. Ooh, creepy. I've been a caver in Florida for about 13 years. What is a caver? That's a job. Since I was about 6. So he's been doing this job since he was 6. Is that legal? Okay. I've been a caver in Florida for about 13 years since I was about 6 and have been to a lot of caves. Never been afraid before this to go in one. When I was about 7 or 8, why is this so sad? I started having this reoccurring dream. I would have it at least twice a year, always the same, even though I'd realize I was dreaming after the first few iterations. I would fall asleep and dream of being in a cave and going into this hole in the bottom. Inside, I would see a 10 to 15 foot long corridor about 2 to 4 feet high. At the end, it would always turn left, and I always saw a bent red stop sign at the end, like someone ripped off the top 2 feet and tossed it in. But I would always follow the corridor. I would turn and walk past the sign despite being scared, despite many times knowing what was there. And the corridor would start descending, quickly opening into a large vertical chamber with the path leading down in a corkscrew. Everything became blurry at this point, but it was always the same. I saw trash scattered on the walls. I saw the pit leading down to a curved floor. I saw things undefined, animals or people or something else at the bottom. And I saw my family, each with one of the things being tortured and killed. Every time, and I could never do anything. At 7, he saw this, or she. After I saw that, I would be stuck for a few seconds until I felt more than saw everything turn. There's a little typo. After I saw that, I would be stuck for a few seconds until I felt more than saw everything turn and look at me, and I would wake up. Not like a normal dream where you just drift to consciousness or a nightmare where you bolt up in fear, but like something pushed me out, like I wasn't supposed to be there. So I have this dream multiple times a year until I turned 15. I did tell a friend about the dream before what happens next. Oh my God, what happens next? My father decided to take us to some caves we never had been before, one of which was Dog Drop. It was likely named so because someone either threw their pet in there or a coyote fell in and the body was later discovered. Gross. Dog Drop had a roughly 30-foot rappel Sorry, I had a notification that wouldn't go away. Okay. Dog drop had a roughly 30-foot rappel straight down to enter. I went down with my brother while my father waited up at the top. There was a hole in the ground. I started feeling uneasy, though I didn't know why. So I followed my brother into the hole. I felt worse as I moved down, and when I looked up, I saw the same corridor, the same turn, the same wall, the same bottles at the corner, and I instantly was hit with this overwhelming sense of nausea and fear and being watched, and everything was screaming at me to leave. I froze, and I must have made some noise because my brother turned around and asked what was wrong. I managed to say that I wanted to leave now and climbed out as quickly as I could, followed immediately by my brother. We packed up and left. Never have gone back and never will. Haven't told anyone what actually happened, just said I wasn't feeling well and they forgot pretty quickly. The thing that really makes it creepy for me is I have never had the dream again. Year after year I would have it consistently, but it just stopped after that. But I still remember it all, and I still feel afraid, almost an external fear, when I think of it. I saw some people talking about looking up the cave and visiting. Just want to say never go caving, especially in an unfamiliar place, without a guide who belongs to a local group. If you belong to another group but have never been in the area, it's best to talk to a local one before leaving. Caving is dangerous and people die. Don't be arrogant and try and rappel on a garden hose. Yes, someone did that. Yes, they died. The local grotto you can check out is called the Tampa Bay Area Grotto, and yes, the initials are TBAG, teabag. I'm sure that was not on purpose. Wow, so it's called caving. I thought it was called spelunking. Maybe it's the same thing. I thought caving was a job. He said Oh, I thought it was a job. It's just a sport, like a fun thing you do. I thought it was called spelunking. And maybe that's another way to put it is caver. Which one do you like more, spelunking or caver? I like spelunking because it sounds better. But honestly, I don't know. Maybe cavers are something totally different. You learn something new every podcast of the Nicole Miller Live podcast. This is Tidy Whitey's 37. With a name like that, you know, this is legit. Tidy Whitey's 37 posted 6 years ago to Reddit. I lived in an old apartment in 2002. The place was built in 1900, so it was just over 100 years old when I moved in. The living room and kitchen were fine, but the bathroom and bedroom were unnerving. Like, I just always felt like I was being watched, especially in the bedroom if the closet door was open. Those unnerving feelings just became moderately uncomfortable as I settled in. I felt safe in the bedroom, but only if the door was locked. One night I was dead asleep when there was a loud bang on my bedroom door. When I got up the courage to get out of bed, I checked the apartment, and all the windows were closed and locked from the inside. The door still had the chain secured. No one was in there. I mentioned the closet in the bedroom. I never liked going in there, and I never liked if the door was open. For some reason in my head, I would hear gasping noises. So for that reason, the closet stayed closed. A month or more after I was woken to the bang on my door, I was dead asleep, but something woke me up, and it was a pressure on me like being held down. It was pitch black in my room, and I couldn't see anything, but I knew someone was standing over me. When I could finally turn on a bedside lamp, no one was there. After then, I couldn't sleep in the dark. I had to sleep with the lamp on. That incident scared the life out of me, and after that, the unnerving feeling of being watched intensified. Friends would come over and comment about being uncomfortable in the bathroom, like being watched. It became so uncomfortable for me. When I had the chance to move to another unit, I jumped at it. I packed up and got out. After me, several people rented the apartment, and they would move out within months. I became friendly with the building manager, and I told him that I felt the place was haunted. He kind of laughed it off. Years after, they were renovating the place. Building manager was doing some painting in there. The building owner was there too. I went and checked out the apartment, and it looked nicer. It didn't feel as creepy. I got to talking with the building owner, and through the course of conversation, he just throws it out there that a former tenant committed suicide in the closet by hanging themselves. He also mentioned that the original designer of the building lived in that apartment and died in there. I wasn't mad when I heard that, but felt validated that my experience was real. Yeah. Man. This is by Obi Meme Kenobi. Like I said, 6 years ago, so these people can't be mad that I read it out loud on a podcast that 3 people listened to. Back when I was a kid, my grandmother had a really close friend who used to help her babysit us. One day, she goes missing. Family doesn't know where she is, and we don't either. About a week later, police find her body in a dumpster. She had been dead for 4 to 5 days. She had been mugged and had several stab wounds, incredibly tragic. Who would mug an old lady? That's so sad. Here's a spooky story. A few days just before she was found, my 3 cousins swore they saw her walking around in their backyard and knocking on their window. The following day had search going through the area. Whatever, like the search party, I think. It wasn't until the body was found that we realized what they saw couldn't be true according to the police timeline, but they swore it was her. Edit. I'm adding more context for the story. I initially kept it brief because I didn't want to have a wall of text, but since this blew up a bit, I'll include more details. The backyard was actually pretty big and long because it was shared by the entire apartment complex, which had 4 units, 2 upstairs, 2 down. My cousins were in the downstairs unit on the left. Again, like I said, in a different post, it was gated on all sides by wooden fencing. My cousin's window had blind spots, so you couldn't see the entire backyard. It wasn't nighttime, but the sun was setting. They said it was almost down at this point, so I assume around 7 p.m. They're in their room, which has a window that sees into the backyard. It was ghetto, and they were pretty poor, so their beds only had the mattress, not the frame supporting it. It was a queen and a single pressed up against the wall with the window. So basically, to look into the backyard, you were standing up on a mattress looking against how you normally face. Back against the wall, sitting down on the mattress. Okay. Youngest brother says, "Holy S, there's someone in the back. Just walked away." Oldest laying down on the bed. "What are you talking about?" The youngest says, "Dude, it looks like an old lady." Well, the old lady. I think they just took the name out. "She's walking around where Grandma's vegetable garden is." The oldest doesn't say anything. Youngest, "Come look. She just walked away." The oldest, "I don't see anything. Stop being stupid." He lays back down. Middle brother comes to look a moment later. "Oh, wow, she's right there. She's coming to us." They all look to see the lady knocking on the window. Oh, so they all saw it. They scream, panic, and run out to Dad. Dad obviously doesn't believe them, but after a bit gives in. He goes out and checks and sees nothing. So just a side note, the way these apartments were connected, you couldn't go into the backyard from your individual unit. You had to get out into the main hall, which had a door that opened into the backyard. That sounds like a great apartment complex. Sorry, it's maybe haunted. To have, a yard that you share with just like 4 units. I mean, I have my own yard and I hardly use it. So to have 4 people using something, you could probably use it yourself. That's what I'm thinking about. Like the privacy. Like, that's great with kids. Maybe they have a little playground out there. Well, there's a garden. That's great. Too bad it's haunted. Ghostbusters BM wrote, this was 6 years ago, and he says 4 years ago, so that would have been 2013. Remember 2013? I got married. It was a memorable year. 4 years ago, I lived in a very large farmhouse that was converted into 2 apartments. The house was known as the Old Boys Home. Okay. It was used to house boys with behavioral issues, but was closed due to allegations of abuse. Anyway, I was living with my boyfriend and 3-year-old daughter at the time. My bedroom had a large fireplace that had been boarded up and painted over. Ooh, creepy. I decided to push my bed up against it one day while I was rearranging things. And how did that go? It was like a headboard. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That night around 1 a.m., I heard a small voice saying, "Mom, Mom, Mommy." I had sat up in bed but didn't see anything, so I reached over my boyfriend trying to grab my daughter and put her in our bed. I kept feeling around. I was still hearing the voice but couldn't feel her. My boyfriend woke up and turned the bedside lamp on, asking, "What the heck are you doing?" I explained that Amelia was trying to get in our bed and was reaching for her. There was nobody there. My daughter was sound asleep in her room. Then the next night came. Around 1 a.m., again, my dog had started to whimper at our door. So my boyfriend got up to take him outside. You know that feeling in a bed when someone lies down next to you, where the bed pushes in and there's warmth in your back? I felt that, so I assumed my boyfriend had come back to bed. I rolled over. My boyfriend wasn't in bed, and I felt the bed release pressure. Whatever was laying next to me had gotten up in that very second. I moved my bed the next day to the other side of the room, and I never had another incident in the 2 years I remained in that house. Well, you're a bigger person than I am, because I would have wanted to move my bed to a different place altogether, like a different house. Just one side of the room, that's no good. The other side of the room, that's good. That makes me think maybe she just slept through all the other things that happened, because that's crazy. One side of the room is haunted. So if you're on the opposite side, you're good. Stylist Nix posted this story. Like I said, 6 years ago again. I guess these are all on the same thread, huh? I never see these until my post will be at the end, but this was weird. My wife and I were having a great weekend in Las Vegas when my father-in-law passed away in the early morning hours. We got the call and we get home as fast as we can to get with the rest of the family. After a couple of hours, the family is all together and talking, sharing memories when we arrive. Shortly after we arrive, it gets brought up, how are we going to share this news with our niece who was in prison at the time? While trying to figure it out, a call comes from out of nowhere. It's our niece, and she asked what happened to Grandpa. She had a dream that he visited her and said goodbye. So she called and was freaking out. I think she saw her grandpa. I really do think she saw him. That's got to be true. And you know what's kind of creepy is I'll start thinking of someone, even if they're alive, and I realize, and it might be someone I haven't seen in forever. I realize it's either like their birthday or something. That date is connected to them in some way. I do remember someone, it might have been my grandparent, I started thinking about, and then I realized after they came to my mind, just out of nowhere, they just popped into my head, and I realized it was the anniversary of their death, which I don't have that in, I don't put that in my calendar. It's just somehow I found that out. That really creeps me out. But it makes you also think that, when we die, maybe we do get to visit people one last time. Creepy pasta. This Reddit account was deleted, but I guess even they're deleted, you can still read what they said. And this is kind of long. I've been editing these so that it's still pretty family friendly. So it's still creepy though. My wife and I stayed at a nice hotel in downtown Pittsburgh. It was where I asked her to marry me. Aww. After a lavish meal, I picked the room because it came with a huge Japanese soaking tub. Okay, I'm going to have to Google that because I don't know what that is, but it sounds amazing. A 6 foot 1 inch man could barely see over the edge of. Okay, I see what you're saying. Like a full grown man can fit in there so deep you can't see over it. That sounds great. Anyway, the first night we stayed there, we were sleeping in the single king bed. I don't know what that means, a single king. Maybe it just had one bed. It's a king bed. I believe the alarm clock said it was 2 or 3 a.m. Probably 3, that's the witching hour. To my left, and just a few feet from me, I heard the sound of what seemed like a pencil slowly rolling down a sloped surface. It was so deliberate and loud that it woke us both up. Wow. That's got to be loud if you woke up. It's got to be bigger than a pencil, though, to wake you, right? It was also so deliberate that while my heart thumped in my chest from the sudden noise, I quickly convinced myself that it was a pencil sliding off the desk in our room, and I went back to sleep. The next morning, to my surprise, oh no, I found that A, there were no pencils in the room. B, there was no desk. It was my first night in the room, so I just assumed that. Like other hotels, it had a place to sit and write. Well, that was not the case. The only thing I could find to write with were ballpoint pens with their caps on. That wouldn't make that distinctive loud noise that a ridged wooden pencil makes as it rolls. Furthermore, there was no sloped surface in the room for anything to suddenly roll off of in the middle of the night/morning. The whole thing was weird enough for us to talk about it that morning. I do not believe in ghosts, but to be honest, I'd love to encounter something unexplained. I entertained the idea of a ghost pencil, but knew in my head it had an explanation grounded in reality. But that's not all that happened. Okay, I'm scared. That night, we were both in the soaking tub. The water was up to my chin. It was great. We were in the middle of February, a cold and miserable month in Pittsburgh. We were sloshing around in the tub, having a blast, pretending we were rich. That's my favorite game. Let's pretend we're rich today. Then from the other room, we heard the buzzing of an old microphone hooked up to a PA system. What? Basically, that sound of feedback that precedes an announcement. The whole room filled with the buzzing sound of a microphone feedback. Our hearts thumped in our chest again, and then we both practically jumped out of our own skins. We heard the distinctive sound of someone blowing into a microphone to test it. Here, let me see if I can do it. Is this thing on? Tap, tap, tap. Is this thing on? You could see it in your head. It was distinctive, just like the pencil. My heart went from thumping wildly to thrumming like a hummingbird's nest. Wait, I don't know why I said nest. While thrumming like a hummingbird's, like heart, their heart. Also, sorry if blowing into the microphone was really, really awkward. Naked, I leapt from the tub and threw a towel around myself. I also bathed in the nude. That was a man blowing into a microphone, I said. My wife stayed in the tub, scared and quiet. I searched our room and did not find a speaker or any kind of speaker grill embedded into a wall or the ceiling. We could not for the life of us find a potential source for that sound other than an iHome speaker that was already playing music from my iPhone. So that was our story. We still had one more night. We were exhilarated by our engagement and the ghosts that haunted the hotel. A week later, I had the thought to email the hotel. I asked them about their building. Pittsburgh is an old town, and downtown Pittsburgh is very, very old. They got back to me and explained, as my jaw dropped, that they used to be an old telephone factory. Wow. I don't know why I found meaning in that explanation or why it made everything click so well, but my thoughts immediately went to the sounds of a factory like PA system, the drafting table, all relics from another time in that building's life. All right, this is our last one because it says they made an account just to do this story because they don't want to be connected to it. So you know it's got to be good. Okay, last creepy story. It's not as spooky as some other stories on here. Bummer. But my SO and I are still a bit bewildered by it. Let's try to figure this out. It's been years and we still wonder about it occasionally. There's no explanation other than some weird supernatural occurrence or just a really big coincidence. For about 10 years now, My Nana has been living in a nursing home. She had a stroke and mentally she is not all there. Oh, I'm so sorry. She still recognizes us when we visit and gets happy to see us, but she often talks gibberish, thinking she's in a distant memory in the past. It makes me sad because she and I always had a very close connection growing up. My parents both worked a lot, and she would stay with me. She used to know when I was lying. She could always sense when I was sick, even when she wasn't over. And she and I are eerily similar both in personality and looks. There are pictures of her when she was 21. It could be me in the picture. We were very close growing up, and I love her dearly. I introduced her to my now husband when we started dating in college. He's from a different country than I am, and I live in his country. So, we had been dating a few years when my visa was going to expire. In order for us to live in one place, we decided to get married. However, we were still young, fresh out of the university, and decided to just elope. We decided to get officially married at a courthouse while announcing our engagement and then having a wedding a few years later. Official documents and wedding ceremonies are separated in my husband's country anyways. No one knew of our plan. We were, and still are, stupidly in love and thrilled to have such a crazy secret between us two. In hindsight, it was stupid and no one would have judged us, especially considering we were still happily together years later, but we still decided to hide it because we were stupid kids. So we flew to visit my parents in my home country and announced our engagement, and my dad picked us up from the airport. We were chatting in the car when he tells us that my Nana was freaking out while he visited her the other day. The day we decided to elope. Why was she freaking out? She announced to the whole family that she saw in her dreams that I had eloped and was now married. They dismissed her because they didn't expect that at all. She kept insisting and was incredibly lucid about it. She raised her voice, which she hadn't done since before the stroke. Her dad had mentioned because he thought it was sweet that she was so worried about this and became so lucid. My husband and I just got silent in the car and I went cold. We don't know how she knew that or if it was just coincidence, but she knew somehow. We went to visit her a few days later and she didn't remember at all. She was thrilled we were engaged. We are happily married now and had our wedding and stuff, and no one ever found out we had eloped before the wedding day. Except my Nana. Nanas always know. They just know, especially with love, things like that. All right, thank you so much for listening or watching. Like I said, join me on Facebook when I post what the next podcast is going to be about, and you can be a part of that podcast. I'll read your story. I don't know what the next one should be. If you have any ideas, shoot me an email, okstmompodcast@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.